Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee and Chat with Hallee Bridgeman. Happy New Year. I know that I said that I would do a video on New Year's Day morning, but we had a meeting for the Kentucky Christian Writers Conference in our home on 7 o'clock on Monday morning, and it went until, 10:30, I think. So by the time everyone left, it was already 10:30 in the morning, and I had plans for the day and my daughter coming home for New Year's dinner, so I just let the video for last week go. So this is my official Happy New Year to you. And I hope that you had a wonderful holiday season. We're getting back in gear here. I have, over the weekend, finished my upcoming Second Generation Jewel series book, which means that Jade's Match will be releasing on January 30th. And it is about a Winter Olympic hockey player and my Summer Olympic beach volleyball player. And I had so much fun writing this book. I can't wait until it releases and I can start hearing if people liked it as much as I did. So that's my welcome to you this morning. I hope you have a cup of coffee and or a cup of tea or water or whatever you drink in the morning, and you have a few minutes to sit back while we chat. So today's question is, how did I know that I was called to write? And how did God confirm it for me? So I will tell you that when I started writing, I think I've told you this before, I wasn't writing Christian fiction. I wasn't writing for God. I was writing secular romances. But what happened was, my company that I worked for had overhauled our computers in preparation for the Y2K. So that was New Year's Day was 1999. So this was 1998, and over Christmas, my bosses redid the whole computer system, and they gave me an old computer to take home with me. And it was the first home computer I'd had since the Commodore 64 that I had that I shared with my brothers and sister and dad when I was growing up. So I hooked it up, set it up, and it was there, right? And it had all of the word processing programs that I used at work on it and stuff. So New Year's Eve night, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning from a dream and went into this computer and turned it on, and I started typing. And 6 weeks later, what came out of it was A Melody for James. So I had no idea that I would write. I had no inclination to write. I read voraciously. I always had a book going. I'm the type of person who would have, a book in my purse, a book in my hand, a book in the car seat next to me. I was the annoying person who would read at lights and kind of keep looking up and checking to see if the light had turned green yet. I mean, I was that kind of reader. And I just never thought I would ever write, but this book came out of me, and it was what is now A Melody for James, but at the time it was just secular romance. And I thought, well, that was really weird. And about halfway through writing it, just a couple weeks into writing it, I sent it to my mother blindly, like she didn't know it was coming. I didn't talk to her, and I mailed it to her, and I didn't hear from her. And I thought, well, it must just not be good. And I still was working on finishing it. And at this time, no one knew I was writing. My mother was the first person I told. My daughter wasn't quite 2. I was married to her dad, and I just didn't tell him. I was getting up at 4 in the morning and writing until 6. And I just did it on my own. This was something that I was doing by myself. And so, I don't know, several weeks after I sent it to my mom, I was at work, and I answered the phone, and she said, "This is your mother, by way of introduction. I want you to quit your job, go home, and finish that book." And what she admitted to was that she was a little apprehensive about reading it, and so it kind of sat on her counter because she didn't want to read it and then lie, but she didn't want to not like it and then have to come up with something nice to say. And so she was just kind of putting it off until she really had the courage to truly read it and then give me an honest response. And so that was her honest response. And so I thought, well, that was, when I finished it, I got it done, and I thought, well, that was kind of a fluke. And I took it to Oregon. I lived in Florida, and my daughter, right before her second birthday, before I would have to buy her a plane ticket, I flew to Oregon. And I brought it with me, and I gave it to my grandmother. And my grandmother and my mother and my Aunt Jackie and their hairdresser, Charlene, in this little town in Oregon, would trade brown paper bags filled with like Harlequin romance novels my whole life. That was like their little book club, and everyone would initial the inside of the cover and pass it on, and they would just pass this brown paper bag until everyone read it, and then they would go to the used bookstore and trade it in and fill another bag. And so it went through everyone, and everyone contacted me. You need to finish this, or you need to write another book. You need to publish this book. And they were my biggest fans for years, and still probably are. Like, the biggest fans I have are my grandmother, her sister-in-law, Charlene. And so that was how I started, but I never got published. And I had talked about my publishing testimony, my writing testimony in another video. You can find that. But I thought, well, that was just a fluke. This book was just this, it was just this dream, and it came out of me. But when I finished it, suddenly I was overwhelmed with story ideas. And the next book I wrote was an aria for Nick. And the next book I wrote was a carol for Kent. And they just flooded me, and I couldn't stop. Everywhere I went, I thought of story ideas. I would be sitting, at a beach in Atlanta, at a beach lake, north of Atlanta, Georgia, and suddenly have like this whole intricate murder mystery plot in my head. I mean, it was crazy, and it was constant, and it still is. I have been this way now for 18 years. Everything is a book idea. Every conversation is a book idea. Every crowd of people comes with book ideas, and it was like these floodgates were open. So how did God affirm it to me? I never got published secularly as a secular author, and I write really strong stories with really compelling characters. There's no reason that I shouldn't have been published. I, in my writing testimony, explained how I stopped trying to get published after one time of submitting my book. The response came back. I turned them down, and that was the end of that. And I honestly believe, in hindsight, that was God protecting me until I came to a place in my mind and heart and soul that all of my talents would be given back to Him. And when I got to that point, then all the doors opened for me, and I had these amazing resources available to me to help me publish in a way that worked with the time, which was late 2011 and early 2012, when the indie publishing world was just starting to really explode, and all of these people in my sphere of people were indie publishing very successfully, and it opened the door for me as a Christian author to come in and indie publish at a time when it wasn't accepted or encouraged in any way. And it helped me kind of forge a path and become very successful very quickly in preparation to kind of stay at the top as it became more and more accepted and popular within the Christian publishing world. And so I believe, and my husband and I both have said that we believe the reason we moved from Florida to Kentucky was because God was putting us in place to have all of those doors open for us, to have that become my sphere of friends and writer friends, and to be in place at a time when everything had to happen for it to happen in like this perfect storm kind of thing. And so the more I think back to my writing and the way everything worked, and through my writing testimony, you can, like I said, I if I remember when I published this on the website, I'll put a link in for that video. But I believe fully that God had His hand on my career even when I wasn't submitting all of my talents to Him. And He was protecting it so that I would have a clean beginning to a career that was completely dedicated to Him. And every time I get a letter, which is often and humbling every time I get a letter from someone who has come into a stronger relationship with God because of what my characters went through in a book, or even people who didn't know Christ but now do because of something that they read in the way that I worded something in my book. That's this constant affirmation, 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 affirmation from God, saying you are doing exactly what I have you here to do in the way that I would have you to do it. And because you have submitted your talents to me, I am letting your words that are my words go out and reach the people I need them to reach in the way that I need them to be reached. And so that's my affirmation. So thank you for that question. I really, really enjoyed answering it. And I hope that you guys have an amazing year. 2018 is going to be an exciting year. And I can't wait to share it with you through my Monday morning coffee and chats. And I will see you next week. God bless you.